Welcome to the 2025 Psychosocial Safety Summit coming to you in March in Williamtown. We're doing things differently again this year by introducing you to the speakers and partners in the lead up to the summit. At so many events, insights about the speakers get missed unless you happen to sit with them or meet with them afterwards. And I'm changing that by helping you connect with these incredible people before you arrived. And if you haven't got your tickets yet, don't wait. Jump on the link below to reserve your spot. Today, I'd love to introduce you to Mariane Power. Thank you so much for being involved in the summit, Mariane. I really appreciate it.
I'm really excited to be involved. We were talking just before we jumped online about the incredible diverse range of speakers coming along, but also organizations. I'm absolutely the girl who's going to get in a room of purpose-driven humans. So this is going to be fun.
Yes, it is. It is. The Brisbane Summit, it was so incredible because all of the speakers really linked, but they didn't overlap. And I can see it happening again. It's giving me goosebumps thinking about it. But before we get stuck in, can you tell us, for people who might not have met you before, just a little bit about your background and experience?
Sure. Well, Nicole, like you, I'm a regional girl. So Port Macquarie or Bur Pie country up the mid-north coast of New South Wales. Gosh, my background experience is very varied. And that's probably because I found out late in life that I'm neurodivergent. So I'm your typical ADHD, multi-passionate human. But I guess all the ways I show up in the world are joined by a deep passion and deep purpose to see the elimination of unnecessary human suffering and activation of human potential. So that kind of got me interested as a young person, really, still in school, in the question of, well, what makes for a meaningful life? I was always super curious about people's stories and what it took to really step into potential and to activate, what we call in psychology, our calling. So now, these days, I'm a registered clinical psychologist and I practice in private practice. But the majority of my work is actually in organizations and helping leaders from founders in early stage startup mode all the way up into Fortune 500s, working globally. I'm very privileged to work with very creative, out of the box thinkers, helping them activate their potential. So a range of different ways in which I show up: clinical psychology, I'm a podcast host, a researcher, a writer. Yeah, you'll see me doing lots of the how, but the why is always solid. It's helping people really to activate that potential and live a meaningful life.
Yeah, I love that. And was there a particular event or something that inspired you to start your own business?
Oh, yeah, look, probably being born to my parents would be the single put the finger on the pulse event. I was
Yeah.
raised in a family. My mum and dad had this saying that there must be a book on it. So dad left his corporate job, if you like, when we were quite young. And that
Mhm.
really had a big influence on me growing up because we had two parents that were there for us that did the school drop off and the school pick up. And that's just as well, because looking back, I was a chaotic kid. Like I was in every extracurricular known to mankind. So actually, I started my first business at the age of 18.
Yeah.
Prior to psychology, I was in the arts. And so my first business was, I guess today you'd call it an art therapy business. We placed youth at risk
Yeah.
with social workers and different actors to be able to use drama and the stage to be able to really work through some of the challenges. And I didn't really even know at the time that art therapy was a thing, but fell in love with the process of healing. I went through my own healing journey and so then moved into psychology. But we also had our own kids quite young. So I've now got a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old who still live at home. They're also neurodivergent, so autistic, ADHD, kiddos, and gifted, so twice exceptional kids.
Yeah.
And so I'm quite lucky because in pursuing my own business, I guess it suits my personality. I love change. I
Yeah.
love things to be new. I love to hear different stories and dive in and solve problems and be creative. So owning my own business allows me to work with a multitude of different clients in different locations with different problems and different opportunities. But then in terms of being mum, which is really a very important role to me and has been consistently, it's meant that we've been able to have a multitude of seasons where we've homeschooled or unschooled or dipped in and out of different types of education and helped my two kids step into their own potential, which is really, for me, the biggest number one role and responsibility, at least at this stage and season of life, and perhaps for forever. So I love running my own business for all of those reasons. It's not to say that working for other people doesn't also light me up. I've definitely had opportunities to go and work in organizations. And that's always fascinating as somebody who really enjoys systems thinking and is curious about culture. Seeing somebody else's, I guess, business owner mindset as an outsider coming in is also something really curious to me. But I think business ownership is definitely my path, definitely my calling.
Yes. There's so much you just dove into there, and like, I can't wait for our next coffee catch up because we will chat more about so many of those things.
I can't wait.
But when it comes to organizations, how does the work that you do help them thrive?
Well, I hope it helps them thrive. I get the feedback that it does.
Good.
Lately, I've been doubling down on neurodiversity.
Yeah.
And I guess that's in parallel to our own journey as a family. When I got my own late diagnosis, I was already working with executive leaders and entrepreneurs and founders who tended to already have a personality type of being out of the box thinkers and creatives, I guess, potentially like attracts like in that way. But receiving my own diagnosis quite late, even knowing what I know as an educated woman, clinical psychology, to get to my late 30s and finally have this missing piece of my identity come to fruition was a real surprise to me. And I thought, what's going on? What have we missed? You know, it was such a deep turning point for me personally and professionally to reauthor and reshape a lot of old stories that were never really serving me and were never really mine to own. But we know from the research that in the absence of a diagnosis, neurodivergent adults, but women in particular, will attribute their brain-based differences to personal flaws. And that was certainly the case for me. So I went diving into the literature, as you do when you're neurodivergent, and as you do when you know you've had this change upside down in your world. But I was really looking for, well, where's the literature in the space that I love to play, which is exceptionality and peak performance and sustainable health and well-being. I think there's a real need and importance for the vulnerabilities in our community. And I've certainly experienced them personally in our family and myself as well. But then professionally, you know, where were the strengths-based resources? So that led me down the rabbit hole of getting really involved in performance psychology applied to neurodivergent professionals, and opened up the pathway to be able to tweak and adjust and pivot my work to really specialize now and hone in on supporting different neurotypes and organizations to thrive. You know, what's really interesting, Nicole, is that the majority of people, when they think about neurodiversity in organizations, they make the assumption that we're going to be talking about diversity and inclusion policies and you know, equity and accessibility, and all of those things are absolutely true. But it doesn't start and stop with recruitment policies and giving everybody a fair go. You know, what people are surprised to hear is that in some industries, like tech, for example, as many as 53% of people are neurodivergent, whether they self-identify or have a formal diagnosis. So we're seeing this real uprise in people understanding that cognitive diversity or neurodiversity is a real important business agenda. And I know we're going to talk about that at the summit and perhaps a little bit more today as well. So in terms of helping organizations thrive, I guess my role in that piece is, one, working with the leaders one-to-one to help raise their awareness, but also their self-acceptance, acceptance of others, and all of the cultural norms around neuroaffirming practices. But then also to unlock that potential within organizations to recognize that, hey, we don't have to be quiet about the way our brains work. And actually, the more we get to understand one another through that lens, just in the same way we've had seasons of focusing on strengths and personalities, and then we can really, you know, create these environments where individuals, but then also collective teams and cultures can thrive.
Yeah. And that's so great that someone like you is able to add value to organizations like that, because I find that when a topic like this comes up, people freeze and go, well, I don't know what to do, so let's do nothing and try and ignore it. And we know that the do nothing approach doesn't work.
Doesn't work. It doesn't work.
So having someone with your skills, your experience, your background, your lived experience, to be able to effectively help organizations know what to do and how to help organizations thrive is really incredible, and something I am so excited that you're going to be presenting at the summit about. Can we touch on that? Can you share a little bit of a sneak peek on what you'll be chatting about at the summit?
Yeah, for sure. Well, you've already touched on a little bit of it. I think a lot of the work that I do is actually the heavy lifting around lived experience story sharing.
Mhm.
What's really interesting in the research is that we know in terms of psychosocial safety, and really providing those climates where neurodivergent people, but all people can thrive. There are sort of three particular pillars that are really relevant. And the first one, without using psychobabble, let's think of it as visibility. So in an organization, and I think this is in some ways true of any minority group, but in an organization, if I'm your employee, I want to see myself represented across the organization. Can I see people like me hanging out here? Because if I can't, then I'm going to be more likely to mask or to hide or to shut down parts of myself and not bring my whole self to work. And then once we've got that visibility piece unpacked, which is that lived experience story sharing, then we want to have that position of belonging. So creating community to be able to come together and share stories and have shared understanding. And then it's not until that third level that we talk about policies and procedures. So when it comes to what we'll be talking about at the summit, I really want to do some heavy lifting, first and foremost on that shared lived experience storytelling, and then
Mm.
also brainstorming with our crew that are coming together, our community at the summit, to really start to think about, well, how can we leverage the good and the possible, the strengths of our cognitive neurotypes that are already within our businesses to be able to create places where people feel like they matter and they feel that they can belong. Because once we do that, that's when we start to activate creativity and innovation and all of those skills and strengths that we really want to be seeing happen and thrive in organizations.
Love that. And look, people might be listening and saying, I don't really want to wait until the summit. I want to connect with you now. What's the best way for them to contact you if they want to find out more before meeting you at the summit?
Oh, that's lovely. I'd love to speak to anybody coming along. Definitely hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. I'm getting more active on Instagram. That's more of my creative play space. So I tend to tinker and share all sorts of funny memes and things. But you're also welcome to email me. So it's just my name, Mariane at marianepower.com. Or you can check out my website that's got the .au at the end. That confuses people. So Mariane at marianepower.com.au. Yeah, I'd love to have a chat. So let me know what you're curious about. I try and shape these conversations around what your needs are, because different communities and different groups are at different starting points of their neuro inclusion journey, and that's okay. I want to meet you where you're at. So hit me up in LinkedIn or in email, and yeah, let Nicole or I know what you're curious about when it comes to neurodiversity. And I really want to challenge people as we're wrapping up this conversation as well, to start thinking about, rather than this being that diversity and inclusion, I want to double tap on that. What if we actually looked at cognitive diversity and neurodiversity as a unique strength that can really activate that untapped potential? Then what kind of conversations would we be having that welcome that inclusive environment so we can really drive some impact? So I can't wait to hear what everybody's excited about.
I love that. Thank you so much. And as I said earlier, if you haven't got your ticket yet, don't wait. Mariane is an incredible human, and I cannot wait to meet you finally in person.
It's been way too long. How many times have we been saying this, Nicole? Honestly, finally our paths are crossing. I'm excited.
Yes, life keeps getting in the way, but now we're making sure that life is in the way and we are connecting for that. So
Yeah.
I cannot wait. And thank you again so much. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. And we'll see you all at the conference.
Yes, see you there.